411 Live.
Where you can learn about issues that affect us every day. State of world, 411 Live.
Real people, real talk.
Made to help people in our community in every way. For your girl, 411 Live.
Sometimes we look at the success of other people and think, I want that. Not really taking into account all the things that the other person went through or the other people went through to get to where they are. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. Hello, everyone. I'm Beverly Taylor, and this is the 411 Live, Real People, Real Talk. I have a wonderful guest with me today. Her name is Dionne Grayson. She is an author, a business coach, a mentor, a visionary leader. I could go on and on and on. She has been honored locally with numerous recognitions. She's also been featured in several national publications. Dionne Grayson, welcome to the 411 Live.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. It really is. And I should mention a few other things because people will be thinking, Dionne Grayson, that sounds familiar. And they may know you. You're the president and CEO of Lead to Change and Dream, Explore, Build, a career readiness program for 16 to 24-year-olds, principle of building your dreams, which helps businesses strengthen capacity. You've written a dozen books, including a 10-part series of children's books.
Yes.
You've done a lot. You've accomplished a lot. So when I initially tried to get in touch with you, and when I did get in touch with you, and I told you, I want you to be a guest on the 411 Live, and your response was, oh, okay, well, what's the topic? And my response was, you. Because there's so much in your story, and I think people will really benefit from it. So I want to go back.
Okay.
Way back. In the beginning.
Let's go back.
Little Dionne, okay? Because I feel like there are a lot of people in the Milwaukee area who have brilliant minds, who have great dreams, but it's not going anywhere. Usually from fear of being rejected, fear of not knowing what to go, who to talk to, that being paralyzed, right? And then I think about you and your younger self, and you dealt with fear.
Oh, absolutely.
So tell me about young Dionne.
So I think that most of my life, especially being a teenager and a young adult, I was paralyzed by fear. I could not make a move because of being fearful. There were opportunities that I passed up because I was afraid that I wasn't qualified, afraid about what people would think. Even as a child, I was raised, my parents were in the ministry, so there was a lot of things that we were not exposed to and we couldn't do. So I was very different. So I was afraid of what people thought about me. And then me being true to who I am, like I accepted people how they were, but I felt like I really couldn't be true to who I was. So there was some fear around that where I really couldn't be around people and be who Dionne was. And so just with how I moved in friendships, with how I moved in business, I was literally paralyzed. And there was a lot that I just didn't do because I was terrified.
So how do you get over that hump?
So this was, as an adult, you just kind of get sick of it. You get sick of it and you realize that there is this fallacy that you've created in your head about all of these things can happen, because you can allow things to manifest in your head and create all these crazy stories that aren't even true. And so what I did, I went to the Bible and I looked at, there's a scripture that says, there's no fear in love and perfect love cast out fear. And so I really did some research into what that meant. And so for me, I had to go back to the core of it, and I really, really studied that because I really wanted to be different. And so what I learned is that it's like it's like the confidence that you have in God. Like he knew what he did when he manufactured me, and he loves me. And so everything that I'm doing it in him. And so just confidence in that is what helped me to overcome. But then there's the studying part, right? But then there's the action that has to happen. There's things that you have to do. And so a rule that I made for myself, and I don't get this right 100% of the time. I'm in the 90s, you know.
Okay.
But every time like an opportunity presents itself, or there's something that I know I want to do, if the reason that I don't want to do it is fear, I do it anyway. And the reason that I do that is I know what it feels like to be paralyzed with fear, and I do not want to allow it to come in, because once it comes in, it's going to try to drive again, and I do not desire that. So it's something that I practice all the time. Even something as simple as, you know, I do a lot of trade shows, you know, with my children's books, and I'll see someone. I'm thinking about one I just did a couple of months ago, and I was so afraid to walk up to this gentleman and talk to him. I went past, and it was a major retailer, and I walked past like 3 times, and I was like, you know what? You're going to do this because you're afraid to do it. And so I walked up to him, and it's okay. I didn't die.
Right, yeah.
I didn't pass out, you know, and it was okay. And we have a conversation that we're continuing this day. So really combating it, even just in conversations, when you're having conversations with your friends, sometimes I would find myself being a part of conflict because of what I didn't say, because I was fearful to do that.
Okay.
So that's something that I had to learn to do. So it was really affecting a lot of different parts of my life, and I was just really tired of it.
Right.
I was really tired of it.
Yeah, because you know I work in the conflict resolution space, and that what you're describing to me is avoidance.
Yes.
And a lot of people do that, avoid things, but it can contribute to the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I learned that, it was just mind blowing to me. I would wonder, like, how am I in the middle of this? And I didn't even say anything. But that's why, because you're avoiding it. And there's a bit of information that you could have given that would have helped the situation.
Yeah.
And so I had to unlearn that behavior.
Yeah. When do you think you found your passion?
I think when I started attending Alverno College is when I really found out what I was passionate about. I remember specifically, like high school was high school. I wasn't the, 4.0 student, not honor roll. I went to school. I was a cheerleader, all that stuff. But when I got to college, it was like, okay, it's time to get serious. And I remember I was talking to one of my aunts about going to school, and I told her that I really want to figure out what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And she said, well, why don't you pray? And she said, ask God to open the door so wide. I'll never forget this. She said, ask God to open the door so wide that you have no choice but to walk through it. Wow. And if it's not him, to close the door. So
I like
doors just start opening. So I had to, there's a scripture that says your gift will make room for you, but in order for the gift to make room for you, you got to show up, right? So I was showing up, doing different things and opportunities, especially working with young people and doing things administratively. At the time, I didn't know how to combine the two, but opportunities just started presenting themselves. And that's when I really started working in ministry. At the time, I was going to Parkland Assembly of God with Bishop Harvey. And so that was such a wonderful learning experience for me. But it was at Alverno. Alverno was such a rich experience for me. And it's where I really got to know myself and to really figure out what I was passionate about and to be brave enough to go after those things.
I like that. Because, sometimes you run into people who say, I'm waiting for God to tell me. I'm waiting for God to tell me. And in that waiting, they're doing nothing.
Right.
But that's not what the scripture is about. You're supposed to be doing something. Like you said, kind of walking in it. Walk, and then let him guide you, open the doors. But you've got movement going.
Right. You have to have movement.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got the passion. You knew you wanted to work with kids.
With teenagers, particularly.
With teenagers, okay. And the administrative.
Yeah, I just knew I was really good behind the scenes. I knew that I was just good with administrative things. And it sounds crazy now, but I was like, how do you combine the two? But I knew I had a love for both of those.
Yeah. So that did that develop into the curriculum that you had?
Yes, I actually, in grad school, I developed the curriculum Dream, Explore, Build. And I think it was a lot of it was based on the experience that I had that I didn't have in high school and in college, really. There were a lot of programs that students participated in, and I just didn't. I can't even give you the reason why I didn't. I didn't know, about the Upward Bounds and all of those programs. I didn't really know about that, but I was very involved in family, too. Like, our family was a family that did things together. We traveled together, very much involved in ministry, so I probably didn't even have time to do that. So then what I did was I found that I loved teaching, and I'll just tell you a really funny story. And me and one of my girlfriends, we talk about this all the time. When Bishop Harvey was transitioning from youth pastor to senior pastor, he didn't tell us he was transitioning, and he said, I want everyone to teach a class. And I was terrified. And so I called a special meeting with him, and I said, okay, so Pastor Harvey, I don't think it's a really good idea for me to do this. Like, I'm sitting across from him telling him all the reasons, and he's just looking at me, like, listening to me talk. And I said, I can't do this. And so he let me finish, and he asked me if I was done, and I said yes. He said, you're teaching on this day. And so I was just like, oh my gosh. And so I did it. And once I did it, he came back to me and he said, it was a wonderful experience. I enjoyed it very much, but I was still terrified. He came back to me and said, I'm going to have you do a series for 6 weeks. And I was just like, oh my God. And so that really broke something in me, and it really developed a love for teaching.
Yeah.
And so then you have this curriculum where, tying it back to my experience, I wasn't in those programs in high school. And then I really had to navigate things myself, first generation. And so it was the curriculum is really the culmination of this is how you explore what it is that you're gifted at. Everybody was designed to do something very specific. So let's look at you to make sure that it's congruent with who you are as an individual, and then let's find some time for you to practice it. So it was really based on experiences that I did not have, and then what I had to do to navigate to figure out what I was passionate about.
Right. Yeah. And then that connection with Lead the Change. So is it kind of that passion going forward was to help young people figure out what that passion, what that purpose is, so they can walk in that, not wait until they're 30-something to do it. Yeah.
Absolutely, because everyone was designed to do something very specific. It's just up to us to find out what that thing is. And like I tell the young people all the time, we all know people who go to work every day and they absolutely hate it.
Yes.
There's no reason why you can't get up every morning and absolutely love what you do. And so at Lead to Change, what we're really doing is teaching a lifestyle. Like, figure out what makes you tick, figure out what you were designed to do, and we'll partner with you as you're doing that and do that thing.
I love that. I love that. So, so you've got that, and I guess that kind of goes into your 10-book series for children, because it's about finding your purpose and what your passion is. Tell me a little bit about the book series.
So I haven't given physical birth to any babies, but I gave birth to these babies right here. So it's a 10-book series that partners with children as they're learning to read. It uses repetition and a predictable storyline, and that's the proven strategy that we use to help kids learn how to read. And so all of the main characters are Black children, and that's something that was done intentionally because 12% of children's books, especially in the K through 12 space, only 12% of those books have Black kids as the main characters, and then of that 12%, only 7% are Black authors. And so I wanted to make sure that I was contributing to that space. And then the whole piece with walking in purpose, like you need to learn, you need to know how to read. And you hear so many kids that talk about how much they hate reading. And so I wanted to create a tool. That's why you see all of the vibrant colors and the names that were selected. I wanted to use that as a way to draw kids in to want to learn how to read. And so kids have special gifts too. There are so many little ones that you see that are doing dynamic things with gifts that they have. And so really excited about the series. It wasn't what I intended to do. But this is kind of what came out as I start putting things together.
I love it. And I love, you talk about the vibrant colors. That is so true. I mean, it's eye-catching. And for any kid looking at it, it's something that would draw them in. It's like a magnet, just seeing the kids and what they look like, and they look like me.
Yes.
And that's great. I want you, we're going to take a break, but I want you, when we come back, to tell the story of how the book series was birthed.
Okay.
Because I love that story.
I certainly will.
Hey, you're listening to the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. We'll be right back.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Life's daily battles are not meant to be fought alone.
We're not powerless, so long as we don't lose sight of what's important.
Don't be afraid to seize that moment to talk to your friends.
Cloud, you okay?
Because checking in on a friend can create a safe space.
The first step on our new journey. You coming?
Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Seize the awkward. It's totally worth it.
Welcome back to the 411 Live. My guest is Dionne Grayson. She is an author, and she wears many hats. But I want right now to talk about that author hat and talk about the children's book series. And I want to talk about, because you knew, long time ago, you knew that you wanted to write children's books, right? But that wasn't really coming together for you. And you told me this story about how this series came together. So tell me, Kim.
So, like you said, I knew I wanted to write a children's book, and I actually thought it was going to be for preteens. And so, of course, it was going to be kids with superpowers that connect to careers, right? Because that's all that I'm about. And so when I was writing or attempting to write it, it was not happening. I felt like I was really, really forcing it. And so what I did, I ended up writing another book that the Lord was leading me to write. It's called The Making, Trust God to be the Chairman of Your Boardroom. And so what that book did was it put me in a posture of listening, because I really had to listen when I wrote that book. And so with the Children's Gift series, I kind of put it to the side, and I was honestly a little bit discouraged. And one day, I woke up in the morning and my sister called, and she woke me up out of my sleep. And I was talking to her, and I told her, I was like, oh my gosh, I had a dream. I have to call you back. And so I dreamt the manuscript. And so I wrote the manuscript up, and it just it turned into 5 books, and then it turned into 10 books. And if I'm very honest, when I looked at the manuscript, and even going through all that I was going through with putting the books together, I really didn't even understand what the series was. I remember talking to God, saying that this doesn't make sense to me. And people wanted to interview me, they wanted to have conversations with me, and I couldn't do it because I really couldn't talk comprehensively about the books because I didn't understand it. And so I had started going out and doing vending opportunities. And what started happening is educators would come to my table, and they would look at my books and say, how did you come up with this idea? This is brilliant. And I'm like, really? I'm like, tell me why. And so that's when I learned about the predictable storyline and repetition as a tool. And so I was just in awe of when God does something, he does it right.
Yeah.
And no, I didn't get it up front. But on the back end, God showed me exactly what it is. So then I did research on the back end, and I'm like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
This
the
is a real life.
Yeah,
it's a real life thing. Just everybody knows about the Brown Bear series, and so kind of like the same thing. And so this was something that I say people ask me about my writing with this. This was a download. Like God gave it to me, and of course, there was some changing to it, but this was definitely a download that the Lord gave me.
You know what strikes me with that story, though? So you get that whole vision, that download, as you're saying, and you go with it. You write it down. You get the transcript, you go to the point of self-publishing and all of that, still not understanding. Because, usually people would look at their manuscript and go, this don't make no sense. Oh, this can't be right. I'm not going to do it. And put it to the side. But you didn't do that.
I trust God.
Yeah.
I trust God, and I know He gave it to me, and so I didn't want to abort the plans that He had for it. And so I could have easily, because this was hard. This was not. I would not recommend publishing 10 books at one time, and it was very challenging doing it. And I knew that God told me to do it, and I had trust in that.
Yeah.
And so that was the thing that kept me to keep going with that.
Wow. I mean, that story, I had to get you to tell that again because that story just gives me chills. I mean, it's just so rich. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, well, let me just talk about this latest book, children's book. I think it's You and I.
Yes, You and I.
Now, that book is very, very precious to you, right?
It is. It is.
Tell me why.
So I lost my dad. It's been almost 2 years, and so I lost him almost 2 years ago. And one thing that I noticed, and I talk to my dad all the time, and so right away, what I noticed is the affirmation that my dad would give me all the time. It wasn't there anymore. So every time I talk to my dad, we would talk about whatever it is we're talking about, him going to the Goodwill, finding stuff, going to Dollar Tree, going to Pick and Save, all the stuff that he does. But he's always affirming me. Always just telling me how amazing I am. He used to always compare me to a stallion. He would say, you a stallion. You one of those prize horses. And so when Daddy tells you all of those things, you tend to believe it.
Yeah.
And so that was also a part of my healing, I would say, just like with fear. And, there was a period where I really had low self-esteem about myself. And so just my dad, massaging me with those words was really important. And so my way of honoring him was to create a children's book, and it's called You and I. And if you know him and you read the book, you'll see some things that are about him, but it's just celebrating the importance of a dad's affirmation with his daughter. And so it's a book about a dad and a little girl named Cece, and they're spending a day together, and every time he opens his mouth, he's saying something beautiful about Cece. Oh, wow. And so it's just, for me, it's a gift to honor my father, but it's also to let dad see and know how important their affirmation is. And so that book is very precious to me. And then, of course, my dad loved the Blue Angels. If anybody who knows him knows it. So the Blue Angels are featured in there as well.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I think that's really important because, we have a lot of single family households, a lot of households where the dad is not present. In the household, but maybe present in the child's life. And this book really affirms that relationship, how important that relationship is. So I really like that.
And it really plays on how you see yourself, right? Like how your dad sees you and how your dad treats you. You have that same standard when you're interacting with someone.
Yeah.
So I had a standard, with men.
Yeah.
Because of how my dad was treating me.
Exactly. And fortunately, you had a very, very good standard.
Yes.
So that's good, too. It sounds like that book not only is for children, but is for men.
Absolutely.
Fathers.
It absolutely is.
I like that. Okay. So you've also done a lot of coaching with and mentoring with people in business. And I know we're almost out of time, but I wanted to get this in because you're a successful businesswoman and people can turn to you and, get tidbits of how I can make this work. Dionne, what should I do? So I'm wondering, what do you see a lot of times of businesses? What are they missing that you notice?
I think that one thing is not really having a plan, is that a lot of people have an idea, but they don't have a plan in place for what it is that they want to do. And I kind of attribute that to like a plan and then some goal setting that goes along with that.
Yeah.
And so what people end up doing is kind of doing the work of the business, but not necessarily working on the business. And so they stay in the same place for a very long time. That would be one thing. And then also, too, I think that another thing that I see is that at some points you need to kind of do an assessment of everyone that's on your team, and including yourself, and making sure that everybody is operating where they're supposed to be operating. Sometimes you need to shift people around. Sometimes you need to shift people out. And then sometimes even the things that you're excellent at, you don't need to do that anymore because the organization is not going to grow if your hands are tied to everything. And a lot of times that's really hard, especially with small business owners, because we think it's only going to be right. Yep, it's my baby, and it's only going to be right if I do it. But you have to train other people to do it. Otherwise, the business is going to die. Like, the business should not die because you're not there.
Yeah.
So those are the things I see mostly.
That's a good thing. Another thing that you mentioned that I really like is you were saying, even with our personal lives, like once a year, assess everything that's in your life and see if there's a need for purging. And you do that.
I do.
Is that hard?
For me, I've been doing it so long that it's a part of who I am now. And so I'm talking everything from what you eat, like examining that, going through that closet, and looking at stuff that you holding on to, but you know you can't get into it, or you're just not wearing it. Friendships. Sometimes you need to spend a little less time with people and a little bit more time with people. That is very important because things shift all the time.
Yeah, because I always say, sometimes there's a season for things, and sometimes there's a season for some friendships.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful at this season, but it's...
And even the jobs that we're on, too. Sometimes, people are just so disgruntled and they're angry. It's probably time for you to move on and be brave and step out and do what it is that's on the inside of you. And so even just doing a purge with that, and that's probably an area that people are afraid of the most, is to move, because there's some financial dollars connected to it. But that's a place, too, where people need to really examine and see, and to make sure that they're in the right space, because those around you know that you're not supposed to be there, just like you know that you're not supposed to be there. So I think a lot of times it's time for people just to look at that, and so they can really walk in what they're supposed to do.
Right. And God has a way of kind of making you uncomfortable when it's time for you to move on.
I know about that.
Yeah, it's time to move on. Okay, so if people are interested, you've got the book, you've got, Lead to Change. There are so many things, and you're still writing. You're in this space and you're enjoying it. So there are going to be more books. So people want information about book launches and those kind of things. How do they stay in touch with Dionne to find out what's going on?
So on Instagram and on Facebook, it's Dionne Grayson Books. And also there's a page, the Children's Gift Series, so you can find me there. I will have, for those of you who have little girls, I have a book called I Am Beautiful that's coming out this summer. Nice. And there's going to be a real cutie pie event, and this is all about self-esteem with little girls. And so you want to make sure that you participate in that. But if you stay in contact with me on those pages, you'll be able to know everything that's going on.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're just in a good place right now?
I am. I'm very happy. I have slowed down a lot. It might not seem like it, but I have. And I really I think as you get older, especially like once you hit 50, you just look at things a little bit different. I know that there was a lot that I missed out on when I was younger, just because I was just working so much. And I just see the world a little bit different, especially after losing parents. And so I really want to enjoy people, family, experiences. So I really do feel like I'm in a good space.
I love that. What advice or what would you like to leave with young people who might be listening?
So to young people who might be listening, what I would say is be absolutely 100% true to yourself. And I know that a lot of times, especially when you're a teenager, that people have a prescribed path for you. It was given to you, so follow the path that you know for yourself. I think that's really important. A lot of times you'll do something, you'll know to do something, and then you'll do something that somebody tells you to do, and then afterwards you're like, man, I knew I should have did that. Be 100% true to yourself. Take advice from people. There's nothing wrong with that, but the advice that you're given should be in alignment with what was given to you. So be true to yourself and move in that space.
There's in Scripture it says pray about everything. That's what you do.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing any of this without being led by God. I would be so lost. And and you go through those times where sometimes you can't hear anything, and it's like, God, I don't know what to do. Like, what am I supposed to do in this space? And even now with some things I got going on, I'm like, okay, God, you're gonna have to lead me, because I don't want to just be, going around in circles. Tell me what to do. And I remind him, you can trust me. Like, whatever you tell me to do, I'm gonna do it. And that scares me sometimes, because I'd be nervous about what he might tell me to do. But whatever God tells me to do, I put myself in a position to be brave enough to do it.
Hey, you have a track record. I mean, look at the book series. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Dionne, our time is up. I told you it was going to go fast, really fast. I am so glad that you decided to spend time with us. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will be like me and be inspired by you. So thank you.
So. Thank you.
Dionne Grayson, thanks again. Yeah, and you'll have to come back with the new book, too.
I Am Beautiful. I absolutely will.
I love that. And thank you for joining us for another edition of our podcast. Remember, we are a nonprofit organization, so if you feel so inclined, go to our website, the411live.org. Hey, thank you for joining us. I love it when you do. Until next time, I'm Beverly Taylor, and this is the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. If you would like to check out past episodes, there are many ways. Go to your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Like and watch us on Facebook. Watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have suggestions for future episodes, go to our website, the411live.org.